I'm feeling called to make a series of videos about different teachers that I've been listening to over the course of my life. One of the teachers that I love so much is Eckhart Tolle. So today I want to do a deep dive into Eckhart's work. All of the different teachers that I gravitate towards are basically teaching you the same thing, but the difference between them is that they each have their own flavor. They each have their own entry point into how it is that they convey the information that they're teaching. Eckhart Tolle has written 6 different books. 2 of them are extremely popular, The Power of Now and A New Earth. And one of my favorite books, which is less talked about, is called Stillness Speaks. And I find that this book is such a gem because of its brevity. Even Eckhart compares it to the Yoga Sutras, which you know that I absolutely love. And every line in this book is so powerful, you could sit there and contemplate each sentence. So today, I'd like to use this book, Stillness Speaks, and highlight some of the things that he talks about so that maybe you can see Eckhart's work in a new light. But before I begin, if at any point you find that this video is helpful, then please like and subscribe so more people have access to this information. The eternal now. I think it's pretty obvious to most people that the entry point that Eckhart uses to understanding what it is that we really are is the now. This practice of being absorbed, of taking your awareness and focusing it on the present moment, is the way that you discover what it is that you actually are. It's the way that you remember the you that you might have been unaware of. The deep truth that Eckhart is always reminding us of is that there is nothing other than the present moment. Even when we're experiencing the past, when we're lost in our thinking or our emotions, we're still experiencing that in the now. So there never really is anything other than the now. And the more that we become aware of that, the more that we become one with that awareness, one with that consciousness. I love that Eckhart says that there is no separating what it is that you are from the now, which is why he's using this as a powerful entry point into realizing your true self. When you start to discover how often you're lost in your thinking, in your emotions, in the past or the potential future, you realize how little of the time you're actually spending in the now. That consciousness that we can become aware of when we find that still point inside of us, when we have that alert stillness and we become aware of the present moment, we realize that life is actually that intelligence, that consciousness that is everywhere. One of the things that Eckhart says that I absolutely love is he says that people will often refer to their life as my life, right? Which is always having to do with the personal self. But he reminds us that we don't have a life. We are life. We are that life, that consciousness that is animating everything. Everything is happening within that consciousness, the mind made self. Eckhart often talks about this mind made sense of self, which is the ego, which is the personal self. This mind made sense of self is really just an accumulation of all of our past experiences. And we hold on to that and we think that that's what we are. And Eckhart is always reminding us that this mind made sense of self is not really what we are. What we are is beyond that, it's much deeper. There's a deeper essence identity within us, which is that spacious awareness, that consciousness that is inside of us. He says that it is our identification with our mind that creates all of our suffering. And this is so similar to what Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutras. He says that all of our suffering stems from an ignorance of our true nature. So now that we've realized that not understanding what we are is what's causing all of our suffering, there's another wonderful point that Eckhart brings up that I'd like to bring up here. German and English are his primary languages. He loves the words that are used to describe a human, which is a human being. And he says that that so perfectly encompasses what it is that we are. He describes this human aspect, the physical self, as the psychological self that identifies as a mind, as thoughts, as emotions, as a body, which is actually something that we've been socially conditioned to believe is what we are. And then you have this deeper being aspect, which is this unconditioned consciousness, which is the essence identity that he speaks about. That is the being aspect in the phrase human being. What I love about what Eckhart does is that he really allows you to find your true self and let go at the same time. What he asks us to let go of is this mind made sense of self, this personal self. And so when we're allowing ourselves to stay in the present moment, to use that attention, that awareness, to bring it into the now, then we're letting go of this personal self because we're letting go of the past and we're letting go of the future. And we're allowing ourselves, much like Michael Singer speaks about, to just be here and watch what's unfolding right in front of us. So, this letting go happens when we're in this state of being because we can't hold on to anything when we're just observing and witnessing what's happening right now. Isn't it interesting how, whenever you meet somebody new, one of the first things that they ask you is, "Oh, what do you do?" And it's always this external side of ourselves. It's always, what is it that we do in the world? Or what have we done in the past? Or what are you wanting to do in the future? Rarely does someone meet you and just acknowledge what it is that you are right now. And Eckhart brings up a very interesting point that ties into this. He says, can you describe yourself without using your past or the future? In other words, what is it that you are if you let go of your past and you let go of the potential future? Who is it that you actually become? And that is what you are. The pain body. Eckhart talks about the pain body. And the pain body is this thing that's inside of us, almost like this little monster that needs to be fed. And it feeds off of negative emotions. The pain body erupts and comes to the surface when our wounds get hit. I've talked about samskaras a lot. It's a yogic term and it means impressions. And it's how we hold on to our either negative or positive impressions that we've had in life. And the more we hold on to those things and store them, the more they create blockages within us. And the pain body, much like samskaras, will continue to rear its ugly head until we learn how to let go of it. When we're so completely identified with our pain body, with our mind, with our thoughts, with our emotions, with the victimhood, then that pain body becomes this incredible barrier and filter so that what we're seeing is distorted. The way that Eckhart says that we can dissolve the pain body is he says that we can use awareness. Our awareness dissolves the pain body because we get into that witness consciousness. We realize that we don't need to actually identify with the pain that we're feeling. All we need to do is watch it and realize that it doesn't serve us, that we are not it, that we are not our feelings, we are not our thoughts, we are not the situation that we think is happening to us. We are the awareness that is observing what's happening. Once we sit in that seat of true self, which is unconditioned consciousness, then this pain body literally dissolves because we realize that we're not that. Now, a key point here is that we're not trying to get rid of the pain body. What we need to do is stop resisting the pain body. Remember, resistance is suffering. All resistance is suffering. So when we allow ourselves to just become aware of whatever it is that we're resisting, we're automatically letting it go. Remember, your awareness is your superpower. Your awareness is the very salve that you can apply to everything in your life that you want to let go of. Because the moment that you do, you give yourself that space and that distance from it. And then you can get into that seat of true self. You can remember, oh, yeah, I'm not the thing that I'm watching. I'm the one watching it. Eckhart says that whenever you're bringing awareness to this pain body, that you must observe it without judgment. You must allow it to just be. And that's how we can fully transmute and release the energy that's being held in the pain body. The purpose of life. What I like about Eckhart is that he doesn't ever negate anything. He doesn't advocate that we should stop having an outer life, that we should stop doing things in the world. But he does say that that is not our deepest purpose. The sole purpose is to remember who you are. Isn't that an incredible thing? I mean, so much of our life, so much of what everybody thinks that they need to be doing in the world has to do with success, money, notoriety. What have I achieved in my life? What am I going to leave behind for my children? Was my life meaningful? What matters is that you discover that you have this beautiful consciousness within you, this essence identity, as he calls it. If we can become aware of that, then we will have had a purposeful life. Our life will have meaning. And the more that we allow ourselves to deepen that awareness, that understanding of what we are, the more meaning our life has. I find this so comforting. I find this so soothing, so relieving, because it's such a grind to think that our life is about out there and it's about making something of ourselves and being something and constantly reaching for the next thing and never being satisfied with where we are right now. What we are, who we are right now is all we ever need. There isn't anything else that we need to do. This is very much in alignment with non-doership. If we can realize that the most important thing in our life is to get in touch with that state of being, allow ourselves to discover that we are pure awareness and that we can just be. There's a line from Stillness Speaks, and he says, "Am I asking you to be happy in the present moment? No. Allow the suchness of this moment. That's enough." Another highlight from Stillness Speaks is that he says, when you know who you truly are, there's an abiding, alive sense of peace. You could call it joy because that's what joy is. Vibrantly alive peace. It is the joy of knowing yourself as the very life essence before life takes on form. That is the joy of being who you truly are. That is by far one of my favorite definitions of joy. Vibrantly alive peace. This is very similar to what Yogananda speaks about when he talks about ever new joy. He says that is the state of our true nature, is that bliss, that ever new joy. And peace is our true nature. Our true nature, that awareness is always peaceful. Whenever I get into that seat of being the witness and realizing that I'm in that seat of true self, then I realize that that self, that awareness, that formless, spacious consciousness absolutely has no problems. There's nothing that ruffles its feathers. It is so still, it is so peaceful. And it's so true that when you sit in that seat, you really do feel this incredible sense of peace. There's nothing that you're holding on to. You're just in that wonderful state of being. What I want to point out about this is that you are always what you are identifying with. If you're identifying with your mind-made sense of self, as Eckhart puts it, then you're going to be suffering. If you're identifying with your true self, your true nature, then you're going to feel peace and you're going to feel joy. So these are incredible barometers for us to realize where we are in the spectrum of things. True love. Love is one of those words that everybody tosses around. Even though there's a standard meaning to each word in the dictionary, we also have our own version, our own understanding of what all words mean, which is why I'm always amazed constantly that we can ever understand one another at all. And love is no different. The word love, just like the word God, is such a loaded word. It means so many different things for everyone. But what I want to talk about is how Eckhart defines true love, not just this human love that we've all experienced, but what is the meaning of true love? And he uses the Bible to describe this. He says that when Christ uses the phrase, love thy neighbor as you would love thyself, what he's really saying, what he's really pointing to, because Eckhart is always telling us that all words are just pointers to the truth. They aren't the truth in and of themselves. He says that when you realize what you truly are, which is that unconditioned consciousness, and you realize this, you naturally realize that everybody is this. And when you recognize that in somebody else, that's true love. That recognition that that same divinity that I am is the same divinity that you are. That's the deepest form of love that we can express for each other. And I couldn't agree more with that statement. It reminds me of the Sanskrit word namaste. The deep spiritual meaning contained in that word is that the divinity within me recognizes the divinity in you as one and the same. And that is so beautiful. If we could just live that way, if we could just see that everybody that we encounter has that same consciousness that we have, it would, in fact, as Eckhart says, be a new earth, the number one sign of spiritual progress. I find it helpful as we are on the spiritual path to have these milestones that we reach or these markers where we can understand that we're actually making progress. Because sometimes it feels so intangible. It's this strange journey inward, this vast spaciousness, this consciousness, this awareness of being. All of these things don't really feel like we can grab them and hold them, and we can't. When we have these spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle to point us in the direction of realizing that, oh, we are in fact making progress. We are in fact understanding some of these truths that he's talking about and understanding them only because we've experienced them firsthand. And one of the things that Eckhart talks about a lot is thinking. And one of the things that he says that is a spiritual marker to showing you that you are progressing on this path is that you are thinking less. And when you're thinking less, you're making progress. And to clarify, he talks about the different levels of the cessation of thinking. He says that you can go below thinking when we do something like drink alcohol. That puts us into this state where we enjoy the act of drinking because we're actually thinking less. He says that is the very reason why we like to drink. Yes, there's a physical sensation to it that's somewhat pleasurable, at least to a point. What the alcohol is doing is that it's stopping the mind chatter. Because of that, we're thinking less, but we're doing it in an unconscious way. So we're going below the thought. And he warns against that. And the way that you rise above the thinking is that you bring more awareness to every situation that you're in. You do that by being here now, by bringing your full attention, your alert attention to the now moment. There's something that I've been wanting to share with you for a while, and it has to do with something that happens to me during my meditation. And I would love to hear your feedback about this. I would love to know if you have also experienced this very same place that I go to during my meditations. And it doesn't always happen every time I meditate, but it's been happening, I would say, for at least several months now. And it's a wonderful thing when it does happen. And what happens is when I get to a very deep place in my meditation and I get to that very still point, what happens sometimes is that I see this tunnel and I start to go through this tunnel. Now, this is not an out of body experience. I've had a conscious exit out of my body, but this is not that. This is just happening with my consciousness. So I feel physically that I'm actually moving through a tunnel. And then this tunnel opens up into this vast, infinite black space. It's not black like this complete darkness, because there are all these little stars everywhere. I'm assuming that they're stars. I really have no idea what this place is. But I see these stars and they're all small and they're all kind of the same size. And when I look around, it's as though I'm seeing the reality as clearly as I see this reality right now. It's almost even clearer than this reality, which is hard to believe, I know. But I'm seeing it and I see that there's absolutely no beginning and no end. It just goes on forever in all directions. And sometimes I'm traveling so that I'm going forward and I see the stars passing me by. Sometimes I'm going backwards. Sometimes the whole thing starts to spin one way or another way. And sometimes I'm just slowly floating around. And one would think that this is an unpleasant experience, but it's actually extremely comforting and beautiful and so familiar. And I'm wondering if you've also experienced this. And the reason why I bring this up is because when I'm in this place, I really have no thinking. It's an incredible experience because I'm just floating around, floating in space with no thoughts. And it's just this utter state of deep, deep peace. And it's so wonderful. And I don't understand it. And I don't want to even understand it. But I would like to know if any of you have experienced this and if any of you regularly go to the same place. So please share that with me in the comments below. I'd like to conclude this video by saying one last thing. It feels really important to where I am in my evolution as a being, as awareness, as my understanding of what I really am. And what I want to say is that there is no understanding conceptually what it is that we are. And I know that everything, pretty much everything that I talk about on this channel is pointing you in the direction of realizing what it is that you are. And yet there is no explaining it. There is no conceptualizing it. There is no understanding this awareness, this consciousness that we are. So I want to leave you with that. I want to leave you with let go of that too. Let go of trying to understand what you are, but instead just be it. Just experience it. I love you all so much. Until next time, remember to let go. Let go of trying to be anything other than the truth of what you are.